Welcome to Mean Green Gameday. I'm your host, Jazzer Williams. I'm joined by Jalen Tucker, Connor Hibbett, and Wyatt Schott. Y'all, today we're going to be talking about a lot of things college football, but first we have to start with our Mean Green Eagles coming back to Denton with a win against FAU. Guys, how are we feeling about that game? I feel like there's still a little bit to discuss, but we'll definitely get into that. Jalen?
Yeah, it was definitely a nail-biter type game. I was on the edge of my seat. Going into halftime, it was 17-27, so we were already down going to the game. So I was definitely looking very frustrated by our defense. We weren't covering the ball at all. FAU were throwing the ball, so the weather was not a factor for FAU, but I would say it was for us because with our defense, we were not covering the spread. Luckily, we pulled it out by barely with a narrow win against FAU, but looking at the rest of our schedule, we have to fix these little holes that we have with our defense. Because when we play teams like Memphis and we play teams like Tulane, they're going to cover that spread, and they're going to expose our defense extremely.
We made Cam Fancher look like a Heisman.
Heisman
finalist. That was crazy. Defensively, I think we are what we are at this point. We normally struggle against the better competition we face, but here's the thing. FAU at least we thought going into it, is not part of that better competition. So where are we? That's my question. That was my question going into this game. That was a game I thought Vegas was going to be looking at us intensively, like looking at us like, okay, how do we value North Texas? Well, that spread moved down from like a touchdown to 4.5, and we won by 4. So maybe Vegas is feeling a little bit better about themselves valuing us. I don't really know who we are at this point other than we're good offensively. We still have some things to improve on defensively. Again, I think defensively we are what we are. We don't really get a push up front. We give up a lot of passing yards to a quarterback who does not throw the football very well. It's probably going to be a long next few weeks defensively.
Yes.
Yeah, we came into this game and I had some questions about UNT, and a good thing is that I walked away with answers. I think I know what this team is. We are a team that has to score probably 35 or more points to win on any given Saturday. Our pass defense is going to be one of the worst in the country regardless of what happens the rest of the year. FAU is a team that came into the season only having 2 passing touchdowns on the whole year, and they threw for 3 passing touchdowns against us alone on top of 350 yards. So our pass defense makes bad quarterbacks look really good. Like you said, it made Cam Fancher look like a Heisman contender. I remember back on when Tom Herman was at Texas, and Texas fans would always say, "Can we please stop making every quarterback look like the best quarterback in the country?" Because it happens so consistently, and that's just a sign of a really bad defense. This year it's the pass defense. Last year it was the run defense. So the defense is what it is, like you said, and we know now that it's going to be our weak point. We just have to score a lot of points to win the rest of these games.
And here's the thing: we had a couple of our transfers that we were relying on that came back for this game. And yet this was arguably one of our worst performances defensively of the season. And so if we are relying on the guys who we thought would be our difference makers, and they are not even that, even if or when they play, that's a little concerning.
Yeah, I think going off a bye week, I would expect us to feel more fresh going to that game. But we just looked weak going into that game. It just didn't look like – it looked like the team against like Texas Tech back in like week 2. That's the type of team that I saw against FAU. And these kind of games that we have on our schedule, we have to manage these types of wins because we cannot pull out these kind of performances against the rest of our schedule. We still have to play teams like the Army, who's still undefeated in the season right now. We still have to play Tulane, who made it to the conference championship against SMU, but they did lose. And then we still have to play Memphis, who's also about like 5-1. So they're strong teams that we have coming up. And with that defense, I mean, obviously it's great that offensively we're able to, throw the ball, we're able to run the ball, we're able to score touchdowns. That's great and all, but what about defense? That is the biggest question mark, and the question mark that we've been asking for the last really 2 years. These last 2, we're getting a whole new coaching staff. You would think with having a new coaching staff being more familiar the way they play now, and they know how they want to play, we would think we would have a better understanding of how we want to play defense.
I have a question for you, Jalen. If we made Cam Fancher look amazing, what are we going to make Seth
Finnegan look like?
Man,
oh, God.
might win Heisman after
Exactly. And Seth Finnegan is a great football player, so we'll probably talk more about Memphis a little bit later.
We definitely will.
Cam Ward, get ready. Here comes Seth Finnegan.
And I think what's really disappointing for us as analysts, we've been talking about this defense and the passing and how the run defense, and every week it's been a test, and we were really thinking that UNT was going to cover and do very well, and this would be a genuine test of what is their run defense going to be? But then it became a test of their pass defense, and it was still bad. Like, we literally said, this team does not pass the ball. I think for me, it's just very frustrating because you're coming off of a bye week. You think, like, okay, we put a lot of reps in, we put a lot of emphasis, like, we should be reading our keys. There shouldn't be any busted coverage. We should be able to manage, and we still don't. And so for me, I think it's very frustrating as far as our defense as a whole, just continuing going forward. So now we've come to the part of the season where we have the most difficult, the gauntlet part of our schedule ahead. And now we need to survive.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we had a lot of missed tackles during that game.
Yes.
And it felt like there was people that had to step up during that game. So it's like we cannot manage that for these next 4 games that we have for. Because now we're playing back-to-back road games. We were obviously in Florida. Now we're going to Memphis to play. And then obviously we play Tulane at home. But still, these road games are going to be a test. But these next 4 games is what's going to test UNT. And that's what's really going to show me what type of team is UNT.
The only positive thing that I can really point out about this game is that we won a 1-score game. Last year we lost practically every close game that we played.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
at least if there was an imaginary threshold, at least against the caliber of opponent like FAU is, maybe we crossed that imaginary threshold against the Owls. Now, does that mean we're going to be up to par with a Memphis, a Tulane, and Army? Who knows at this point, because offensively we are, but at least we managed a 1-score game better than how we did last year. That's a positive I can point out.
Yeah, when we talked about this game last week, we talked about how the run defense might finally get tested. Because I don't think there's been a team on our schedule yet that has tested our run defense, like truly, giving us a real test. We talked about how the run defense, because they're so bad throwing the ball. And then we walked away from the show and I thought, what if they play to our weaknesses instead of playing to their strengths? And that's exactly what they did, and it just, I mean, it was a disaster. It was like an absolute disaster. 350 passing yards is unacceptable for a team that averages more rushing yards than passing yards in a single game. This game against Memphis could get really ugly because of that, because Seth Hennigan's a really, really good quarterback, and he's going to throw the ball a lot. That Memphis team has flaws that we're not equipped to expose. We're just not built to beat a team that has flaws as Memphis. We're equipped to beat teams that can run the ball, because our run defense actually is a little bit improved. We made that comeback in the FAU game because they had to run the ball and try to drain some clock. We actually got stops then. We couldn't stop the pass game. I mean, and it's going to be like that for the rest of the season.
And one thing I'll say, and I'll say this again in D block, I'll kind of hold a lot of this thought for later in the show, but I will say Memphis has not played their A game yet. I think they're holding back something right now.
I definitely agree.
I know you do.
It's going to be a tour game this week.
Real quickly, I want to go down our little midseason report card for UNT. First, I'm going to give our offense an A. As you've seen, we haven't said anything negative about the offense. Actually, we're at total offense 5 with Chandler Morris. He's really pulling through for us. So I'm going to give them an A. As far as defense, I'm going to give them a C. I was bordering on C-, but I'm going to give them C because their run defense has improved from last year.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we had really much of a problem with the offense much last year because we had Chandler Rogers, but with Chandler Morris, he's been a great addition to our team, and DT Sheffield has been a great running back as well. So we've had some great people step up. So yes, I do agree. A for our offense. I'm also going to give a C to the defense because I think we have improved a bit more. I don't think we're the worst in the country anymore. We were last year.
No, we're 5 up, I think.
Yeah, we're 5 up. we moved up a little bit. So, I'll take that for us.
The floor is higher.
The floor is higher. So I think there's a lot more room to grow. So I'm hoping to see the rest of these next four games and rest of the season, really, what's going to step up for the defense.
As long as Trent Dilfer stays in UAB, we're not going to be last defensively. I'll just say that much.
True.
Offense, A. I think they've been terrific so far. Whenever you're relying on a lot of transfers, you're not really sure how those guys are going to mesh, but they've been really good so far this year. Defensively, I'm going to go with a C-.
I'm going to go A offensively, and I'm going to go with a D+ defensively. It couldn't get much worse on defense. If we weren't winning games, I think all of us would have it as an F.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's basically our point here. And we're going to be talking a lot more about UNT moving forward, so don't go anywhere.
So a man's been walking in the desert for days at a time. He finally comes across a bar and orders a Coke.
That's not funny.
Eh?
Has this ever happened to you?
My bike! My bike is gone!
Stolen bikes are an epidemic sweeping college campuses across America.
What am I supposed to do?
It's quite simple. The We Mean Green Fund has partnered with the UNT Police Department to offer free bike locks to any UNT student with a bike. Just show up with your bike in tow and ask.
Now I'll never lose my bike ever again.
Enough worrying. Get your bike lock today.
Did you know you have access to video equipment like DVDs, video games, and cameras? That's right, you do. Come on down to Chilton Library and fulfill your media dream. Located on the bottom floor next to the student sculpture. Hope to see you there soon.
Hey girl, you know you look good. I like the way you move and groove. I'm not your
Welcome back. We're going to be talking about some of our mid-season superlatives, some of our under and overs, and favorite players that we have seen throughout the season so far. We're going to start with our overachievers. I am going to go with Boise State. Obviously, this is a team I don't think anybody expected to see, especially being a Mountain West, and Mountain West football isn't the greatest. Sorry, guys. But Boise State is doing very well. Obviously, Ashton G&T is a big part of that, and they've shown that, and that he can utilize him so well. So I think Boise State's offense booming, of course, and they have a solid QB as well, and their defense isn't bad either. So I think that I'm going to give them an overachiever because go Mountain West. Like, good for you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, G&T's been a great addition to them. They're obviously wanting him to run the ball more, so they're trying to get they're trying to get him his stats, as they should.
Right, as they should.
Yeah, so for me, for overachiever has to be the two teams in our conference, Army and Navy. Both 6-0 teams that I never expect. Two teams that are in the American Conference that are ranked in the top 25, by the way, guys. Navy's 25 and Army's 23. Didn't put that in my bingo card at all to see. But Army's QB, Daly is amazing. He's 6'2". He's 222 pounds. Literally the last game, he stiffed Arda Man. That man loves to run the ball. So yeah, Army and the Navy have been two teams that I've been impressed this year to see how the way they've been playing. They're having strong offensive side of the ball. They're obviously able to score the ball, but they're also able to hold defensively. So obviously for me as a UNT Mean Green, I'm obviously concerned when we play Army, but I mean, props to them to see them in that top 5. It's great to see American Conference, make their way up in that top 25. It's nice to see.
Yeah, compared to other military quarterbacks, Bryson is a night and daily difference.
Yeah,
I had to be punny at some point today.
I love that though.
Thank you, I appreciate that. BYU, I'll go with it as an overachiever. They just barely won last night.
Against Oklahoma,
They're 7-0 right now. I can't believe it. But they're kind of fraudulent for their record. They're not as good as their record. Some teams are worse than their record. Some teams are better than their record. And BYU is worse than their overall record right now. And another team, I didn't have this team making a bowl game by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't think they were going to win more than 2 or 3 games. UL Monroe out of the Sun Belt? Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah.
They're 5-1 right now. 5-1.
And their only losses to Texas.
I know. Yeah. And now, if they play a team that's more talented than them, which, by the way, is going to be practically every team moving forward, they may not look quite as good, but they are coached wonderfully. And here's the funny thing about UL Monroe. Their current head coach was the interim coach for UAB 2 years ago. And UAB decided to hire Trent Dilfer instead of this current coach for UL Monroe. It's amazing how things can change in the span of a couple of years. UAB could have made a much better decision. I keep bringing up the Trent Dilfer experience here with UAB. We'll see how that situation goes later this year. Hint about that. They're an underachiever. If you want to throw out an underachiever, how about Oklahoma State as an underachiever? A lot of people thought this was a dark horse, not even a dark horse team to make the playoff, but an outright contender to make the playoff and an outright contender to win the Big 12. And they are currently 0-4 in Big 12 play, a big fat 0 in the win column in conference play. I didn't see that coming. Now, I thought last year Oklahoma State was worse than their record, and this year they had a much more difficult schedule. But the Cowboys have certainly been one of the more underachieving teams and disappointing teams this season. Kansas, Air Force, North Carolina, those are some other. I could have gone with the entire ACC, really.
Yeah, honestly, quite honestly. I'll go with an ACC team. I'm going to go with Pitt as my overachiever. Pitt is a team that is 6-0, undefeated. I mean, probably one of the more sneaky undefeated teams in the entire country. Their quarterback is Eli Holstein. I remember I was watching Pitt, West Virginia when the season first started, and I see Eli Holstein as the quarterback for Pitt. I had no idea that Eli Holstein was there. I remember his recruitment. It was a decision between Texas A&M and Alabama. He ends up going with the Tide, and he transfers in from Pitt after this year. I was floored to see that Eli Holstein was the quarterback for Pitt. He's done a really good job there, and they probably haven't played a top 70 team. They haven't beat a top 70 team yet.
Welcome to the ACC.
Yeah, exactly. The ACC is extremely bad, and so I just don't see this team finishing with a better record than like 7-5. They could lose, probably win only one more game the whole rest of the way.
And we could have gone with another ACC team as an overachiever. I don't even know if I want to call them overachiever, but more just lucky based on their schedule. The Duke Blue Devils are
Right.
currently 6-1. You watch them. I'll make a take right now. Mid-season take here. Mid-season superlatives, mid-season takes. Duke will not win more than one more game the rest of the regular season.
I think that's an agreeable take.
Yeah.
I don't think that's hot at all. I think that's very agreeable.
Yeah.
I do love Duke quarterback Malik Murphy.
Yes.
I figured he would.
Longhorn legend.
Of course, of course. Now, I'm going to throw out my underachiever. I'm going to go with Bama. Now, it might be a little bit weird to you guys, but I feel like I had a lot more for
Not weird
Bama
at
this
all.
year. Yeah, I had higher expectations for Bama. I thought that, they had a lot of potential coming into this. Not even potential. I thought it was there. And then for one to see, there was a stretch of games that were looking a little scary, and one of those was including Vanderbilt, which I think, again, nobody was expecting this year. But I expected Jalen Milroe to show up a little bit more.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's still in Heisman contending, I think it's just a little favoritism because
Yeah.
it's Jalen Milroe.
Right.
But so that's a little bit confusing to me. And then as far as just generally like Bama, showing up, I don't think that they have. And I think that because in a different bracket, of course, compared to other teams, like Bama is still a very good team. But in a higher bracket, I think I just had a higher standard for them, and I think they've been a little bit disappointing is a good word.
I think that also has to do with the new coaching staff. You
Of
have to
course.
understand Nick
Yeah.
Saban did leave, as he retired there. So I think with the new coaching staff, they have to break apart his offensive and his defensive side of how he used to run things. So I think now they're trying to make it more simplified, but I think they're doing it a little bit too simple now, to a point where I think the players are executing the way they need to.
Yeah.
So I do agree. Bama has been a team that's just been it's been awful to watch because it's just they're winning or losing these nail-biter games that they should be winning.
It truly is just disappointing.
It's truly disappointing. For me, for my disappointing team is USC. Obviously, you come off a team where they had Caleb Williams as a quarterback, which they had a great season last year, but now they're 3-3. They obviously lost against Penn State in overtime. So very close game for that. That's a great game for them. But I think you expected a lot of team from a team last year, but obviously when you lose guys and things like that, of course you might not be at that same level. But you would think with the same coaching staff and things, they can meet up to that standard. So now they just completely have fell off, and now now switching conferences and everything, they're just not the same team that I was expecting to see them throughout the season this year.
I've already given y'all a sneak peek at my underachieving teams. For some reason, I had to go to it. The last time I was talking, for some reason, I just could not wait to get to the underachieving Oklahoma State Cowboys. How about the Air Force Falcons, currently 1-5? And this was a team that was in the top 4 of odds coming into the season to win the Mountain West, and they have yet to beat an FBS team this year. Very disappointing, Falcons. I'm very disappointed in you. Now, this is also in large part due to 4 years ago, the way that they played their roster coming off of the COVID year. This was a team that was destined to be in a rebuild year this season, and my goodness, is it ever. But this is just really underachieving season for Air Force. But nonetheless, I'm still high on Air Force's coaching staff for the future, so I'm not pointing fingers at any person in particular on the sidelines there. I was kind of hinting at this earlier. How about like the entire ACC just being underperforming this year, basically outside of like maybe 1.5, 2 teams.
Yeah.
So that's why there are teams like Pittsburgh and Duke that are currently either 6-1 or 6-0 and have yet to really play a team with the pulse. That's just the ACC right now. I mean, if you were to power rate all the Power 4 teams, the majority of the bottom of the Power 4 would reside in the ACC. That is basically a summary of the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Yeah, and I'm going to touch on 2 more ACC teams as my underachievers. One of them being Virginia Tech, a team that both of us talked about in the preseason and came into the season with high expectations for them. You bring back Kyron Jones, it seemed like they really figured out something with him last year in the run game, and it just hasn't worked out. Now, I think their schedule's a little bit tougher than we initially thought. Vanderbilt's much better than we thought. Rutgers is much better than we thought. And, of course, Miami is really, really good. But that is no excuse for the way that they've played. They just haven't performed well in any of their games. They just played Boston College the other night, and they were up 28-0, and then they allowed 21 unanswered. And then they go on to win the game, but it was still really, really ugly against a team that they should have beat soundly. We've discussed this, and it is most likely a coaching staff issue.
Yes.
I don't expect that staff to be around too much longer, maybe one more year if they can salvage some of this season. And then, of course, I have to touch on Florida State just because it is such a train wreck. And people are like confused about the Florida State like fall off, but to me, it makes perfect sense. It's a team that lived by the portal last year in 2023, and it worked exceptionally well. They hit on all their evaluations in the portal. And this year, they missed on all their evaluations. I mean, it was complete 100 to 0. Like, they missed on all their portal evaluations at quarterback, especially at wide receiver. They're bottom 10 in the country in drops. I mean, their receivers are allergic to catching the ball. They can't hold on to it. And now you have a redshirt freshman quarterback and Brock Glenn starting the rest of the year, and you're making life so much harder for that poor kid. It's a disaster happening in Florida State. They haven't recruited well in high school. They're barely on that fringe of top 20 and top 15, and that is not where the elite teams reside in recruiting. You have to recruit at least in the top 10 to be competitive at the national level, and Florida State has not done a good job of that. It seems like Mike Norvell is trying to turn that around, and he's emphasizing high school recruiting a lot more. He had to use the portal when he first got there because Florida State was such a train wreck under Willie Taggart. And so I understand the philosophy of Mike Norvell. I understand them going to the portal again this year. It worked last year. Why would they not try to duplicate that? It just didn't work out, and that's the life of living and dying by the transfer portal.
Yes, it is, and that's why I think we're going to see more oftentimes over the next few years in the near future, teams to go from like 0 to 100 and 100 to 0, because there's just going to be more variance because of, like Wyatt said, you're going to be living and dying by the transfer portal. Who knows how these new players are going to mesh? So I think you're going to see a lot more variance in college football on a week-to-week basis.
Next, we're going to go through our favorite breakthrough players. I'll go ahead and start. I wouldn't say that this player is definitely unknown. He's definitely known as far as fame and social media and whatnot. But I'm going to go with Shedeur Sanders. Now, the reason why I picked this is because, one, Shedeur Sanders he hasn't been the greatest quarterback, even at Jackson, even at Colorado last season. He didn't perform very well. Now, this season, one of the couple first games I watched, I said, oh, he's got it this year. And he still doesn't have an O-line. Like, he's still getting heavily sacked. Maybe not as much as last year, but it's still up there. But he is able to perform very well in the pocket. He's remaining calm, poised. He's able to throw in really good passes over coverage. He's putting the ball in such a great place for his receivers to, one, catch the ball and continue to run and not get mangled. And he's throwing with people right in his face because obviously no O-line. So I think for what they have at Colorado, I think Shedeur is doing a really good job. If he had a solid O-line, I think that he'd be solid. Colorado would be scary.
Well, I'm going to go quick here because I have two. But I'm going to go about, obviously, we talked about Ashton Genty off of Boise State, the running back. Obviously, we don't have to touch too much about him, but I think he's been a phenomenal player this year. The amount of yards he's had, the amount of touchdowns he's had. Boise State is obviously trying to get him in that Heisman talk, and they're doing great for him. So he's been a great utilization for Boise State. We're definitely going to probably see them in the playoffs. We'll probably talk about it a little bit later. But we're definitely going to see them in the playoff. And then, obviously, I'm going to just go with Bryson Daly from the Army, the QB for them. He's a powerful player for Army. He's a running quarterback, and I just enjoy seeing quarterbacks run the ball, to be honest. But he also can pass the ball too. But definitely two guys that I'm high on right now.
If y'all are not on the Indiana bandwagon yet, please join me. And it starts with the Ohio transfer quarterback, Curtis Rourke. This guy is back to what he was a couple years ago in terms of his health, and he's one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country. If y'all have not tuned into Indiana football games, do so today as they play Nebraska. It should be a great one.
I'm going to go with a little underdog guy. He's at the University of Texas. That's why I know him so well. And it's Quintravion Wisner. After C.J. Baxter and Christian Clark went down at the preseason with both season-ending injuries, Jaden Blue and Quintravion Wisner really had to step up this year, and he had a breakout game against Oklahoma. 118 rushing yards, nearly 2 touchdowns. He fumbled on one. It was recovered in the end zone. But he is going to be a feature back for them the rest of this season. And I expect him to put up big numbers. Sark has never had a year without a 1,000-yard rusher since he's been a head coach. This might be the year due to injury, but Quintravion Wisner will make a case.
Next, we're going to be talking about some of our playoff predictions and some of the stuff we should be watching out for in our next vlog. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
There's no harm in wanting to have fun while in college, but it's easy to lose track of how much you've had. Apps like Drink Control and Alkadroid can help keep track of your consumption and blood alcohol levels. If you or someone else does drink too much, the signs of alcohol poisoning are as follows: pale skin, vomiting, confusion, low body temperatures, irregular breathing, blacking out, and it's hard to wake up or cannot be woken up.
Dude, are you okay? Hey, what's wrong? Wake up.
It's an exciting time of year, but it's important to be responsible. If you suspect someone is suffering from alcohol poisoning, get help immediately. You will not get in trouble for seeking help if you are underage. For more info and resources, go to UNT's Division of Student Affairs.
Welcome back to Mean Green Game Day. I'm your host, Jazzer Williams. I'm joined by Jalen Tucker, Connor Hibbett, and Wyatt Schott. Y'all, we're going to be talking about some national college football. First off, we're going to start with our playoff predictions. If you don't know, where have you been? Have you been under a rock? We have a 12-team playoff in college football. This is going to be the first season it's been implemented, and we're going to be talking about some of our predictions as to how that lines up and where we think our teams are going to be placed at. I'm going to go ahead and let Jalen go first.
I think with the 12-man playoff is definitely very much more interesting now. Now that's going to be just a longer season for these players now. So now it's really what's going to be important is making sure that these players are healthy. Let me just start there. Because extending the team like that way is going to cause those injuries and things like that with these little, because we're in week 8 now of gameplay. So we're getting towards the wire. We're in the middle of the season. So, you know, it's definitely making sure that we're keeping everybody healthy. So the teams that I have sneaking in there in the top 12, obviously you can't talk about playoffs without talking about Texas right now. They're obviously at the top right now.
Great point.
So that's obviously a team that you're going to see in there, of course. You got obviously teams like Oregon. I think Oregon is someone that I've been enjoying watching. I mean, they're two. After that, especially against Ohio State, the last game, them pulling out that win, I definitely could see them sneaking in there for sure. Miami, obviously Miami's 6-0. Cam Ward's obviously a great quarterback for them. So we're definitely going to see them. Ohio State, Notre Dame, I think it's going to sneak in there. Probably we're going to see them in there. We're going to see Bama. We'll see where they land right now. Hopefully they stay on the trim and they're going to win. Obviously they have to still have some games to play. We have Penn State, Clemson. I think Georgia's going to make it in there. I don't think they're the team they were last year. I don't think they're going to win the national playoffs this year. But they're going to get in there. And then we're going to see Boise State, and we're going to see Texas A&M. Obviously, I think Texas A&M had a rough start to begin the season. But I think they're just making their way up through this back half of the season. And then I think Boise State has been a great team this year, especially with Genty being, you know, their running back has definitely been a high level for Boise. So that's my top 12 for the playoffs. I think it's going to be a great season of football. I think it's already been a great year of football. So I'm excited, but we're definitely going to see a new national championship. For sure. We already know that. We can all agree at this table we're going to see a new national championship.
Yeah, it's not going to be Michigan this year.
No, Michigan. I'm sorry.
But Jalen had a great take last year of picking Michigan to win the national
I
championship.
did.
Genius. I had to say it again. It's like the third time I've said it this semester.
I love it. Thank you.
Let's see here. Let's see. Are we going to pull up the graphic here of my 12-team playoff field? I've got Texas at number 1 because the way that I'm looking at this, I think, we'll see, Texas and Georgia play each other twice this year. You heard me last week on the show with Ohio State and Oregon. I'm not going to pick one elite team to beat another elite team twice in the same season. But notice how I have the team seeded. It's matchup based also on how I think the committee is going to say, okay, in terms of viewership. So also like Oregon at 5, that's why I have Boise at 11 because Oregon already played Boise earlier this year. I don't think the committee is going to want to see that matchup twice. And in terms of TV rating, wouldn't it be awesome if, like let's say Miami, they play for the ACC title, but they don't win it. Clemson wins it because I think Clemson's playing better football right now. But Miami faces Notre Dame because that's such a great rivalry.
Catholics versus convicts.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I have them seeded 8 and 9 also because the ACC hasn't looked as good this year. So I don't think the committee is going to respect the loser of the ACC title as much as they would the loser of the SEC title or Big Ten title. And so that's kind of how I have it seeded. And then I have A&M kind of as a dark horse. I figure A&M because I think 4 SEC teams are going to make it. That's kind of my reason for putting A&M in.
Like you said, I think you made great points of saying that at the end of the day, this college football is a business. And they're going to want the most views in college football. So the committee's going to want to set it up to the best way to watch it because it is that 12-man playoff.
Yeah, and whether it's like an Ole Miss, an A&M, and LSU, I just feel like we're going to have 4 SEC teams in. I just think A&M has the most likely path in terms of odds because of their schedule.
Gotcha. I'll go ahead and get into my playoff prediction. I got my conference champs. It's going to be Texas, Ohio State, Miami, and Iowa State. I picked Iowa State in the preseason. I'm really riding high on that prediction right now.
Yeah.
I really like that because it makes me look smart. I do think that Ohio State wins the rematch with Oregon in the Big Ten championship game, giving them that first round bye. And then after that, I have Oregon at 5, Bama at 6, Georgia at 7. I think Georgia ends up with 2 losses and doesn't make the SEC championship game. But because they're Georgia, because they have that brand, they'll also probably have a good win against Ole Miss. They'd have to if they're in the playoffs. They would still be up there at number 7. Number 8, I have Notre Dame sneaking in. They have that bad loss to Northern Illinois, and I just don't see them losing another game on the schedule. USC hasn't been everything we thought they would be after that LSU win, so I'd be surprised if Notre Dame doesn't make it. Clemson's playing great football after that bad loss to Georgia in week 1, which also is another case for why Georgia is so high because they have that win over Clemson. Penn State is going to sneak in. I think they might lose 2 regular season games, but there's not going to be anyone else to put in.
For sure.
And so Penn State's going to find a way to sneak in. I have Boise State at 11 and Texas A&M at 12. I keep flip-flopping on those 2 teams. I can't decide which way I want to put them. And I think you're right that they don't want to see the rematch if it's Oregon at 5 between Boise State and Oregon. Something to note, though, with Oregon at 5, there will be a real argument that having the 5th seed is better than being Ohio State and having the 2nd seed because you get the home playoff game on campus against the 12 seed, which is some would assume is going to be Boise State. Let's assume it's Boise State. So you get the G5 at home first week. And then next week is a neutral site against the Big 12 champ. And that's going to be the worst conference champ. If I'm Oregon, I want that. I don't want to be Ohio State where I have to play the winner of Georgia and Penn State. I would rather play Boise State and Iowa State. You don't get the extra rest, but there's a week in between all these playoff games, and you'll have time to heal up. To me, the bye isn't that much more important than playing Boise State and Iowa State. So I think that there's a real case that the 5th seed could have the easier pass than the Big Ten champion or whatever conference has that 5 seed.
I'm going to paint a very silly picture for y'all. I mean, it's kind of realistic in a way, and it's kind of piggybacking off of what Wyatt just said. The way Dan Lanning, the head coach for Oregon, thinks, Oregon is going to purposely lose in the Big Ten championship, also because there's more pressure for Ryan Day and Ohio State to win the Big Ten championship. And then because Dan Lanning's like, I think it'd be more favorable if we were the 5 seed. Because the way Dan Lanning thinks, he thinks like long term. He doesn't just think right now. I'm kind of painting a silly picture here, though, because Oregon's obviously going to be motivated to win the Big Ten championship.
But Dan Lanning, he just put 12 players on the field intentionally. So if someone's going to do that, it's going to be Dan Lanning.
He's definitely a risk taker. He's a silly guy. So I could see it happening. Actually, I don't think that's out of the picture at all.
I love last year when he put his players on notice before they played Colorado. And they were hyping him up it's our Super Bowl. We are here to play and all that. That was great. So I'm kind of a Dan Lanning enthusiast now.
He's like if Tom Herman worked at Texas.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to start. Mine is obviously going to be Texas at 1, just because that's obvious. I'm going to go with the same route of how you said Ohio State is going to win over Oregon this time, so they're going to be seated higher. I have Miami at 3. I don't know how secure I am about that pick, but I'm going to go ahead and leave them there. Ohio State, obviously, they've been performing very well throughout the season. Oregon at 5. And then I've been flip-flopping between Georgia and Bama, and I'll get into that in a little bit. And then I have Penn State sneaking in just because, there's no one else that they can put. And then Notre Dame also sneaking in, not very high on them, but, they're still going to perform well and they're going to make it in. And then I have Clemson very low. And then I have Texas A&M and Boise State. Now, here's why. If we're looking at, this is a 12-man playoff and it's football, but if we're looking at it kind of because I'm a basketball person, if we're looking at it like March Madness, a typical thing to happen in March Madness is the 11 or the 6 usually sneaks off higher than they're supposed to. Now, right now, I've been flip-flopping Boise State and Texas A&M. I didn't want to put Boise State at 11 because I don't think that they're going to go that far, even though they are performing very well. They are still G5. And then I put Georgia at 6. And that's why I was flip-flopping them, because is Bama going to go a little bit farther, or is Georgia going to go a little bit farther? And that's going to go either on culture, grit, just effort, or who's actually going to perform well in the moment. I think both of those teams are matched pretty well right now with how they're performing as far as defense and their secondary and all that, and little QB situation. Georgia's not as bad. But I think that I'm going to stick with that. I don't know how confident, again, I am in Miami to stay there, to be there actually, but we're going to go with that for my playoff predictions. Now we want to jump into some of the storylines to watch for the remainder of the season. Now, I'm going to start. Army is taking over the American, y'all. This is their first season in the American. And they said, give me that.
That's kind of poetic, you know.
Literally, they said, give me that.
American.
Army taking, that's true.
Very true.
Yeah, they said, give me that. They are taking over the American, and they're really just putting up numbers like crazy. They said, everybody move.
I'll be quick with it too, because I'm going to say I think I have Ginty winning the Heisman. I would love to see a running back. I know it's big on the QB side, but we're going to see a running back win it.
We are seeing the gap increase between the G5 and the Power 4. So I'm going to say the G5 has the least amount of wins over Power Conference teams in the playoff era. The current lowest number is 15. I think it'll be lower than that this year.
I would just say watch the Big 12 race. Whoever comes out of this conference, there's a handful of teams that can genuinely win the thing still at this point in the season.
Next up, we're going to be talking about UNT versus Memphis. That is going to be taking place at 6:30 today out in Memphis, y'all. So do not go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Glad to me means a safe space. It means a place where I can just kind of hang out, have fun, and just be around other queer people. There's drag shows that we attend, other movie screenings in collaborations with some of the film guilds. We run fundraisers for both charities and for our own organizations. Just the general support from everybody, it blew me away, and I had never really seen that from an organization before, so I was like, screw it, I'll join.
Hey Alex, this guy on the internet says he wants to give me money.
That sounds suspicious.
What do you mean?
Typically, strangers who promise you money on the internet have their own best interest in mind. They often use bounce checks, which will disappear shortly after depositing, but not before they've asked for some money in return.
So he doesn't really want to spoil me?
No.
Well, then what should I do?
The best way to handle it is to block and report the suspicious message, or even consult local law enforcement if you've already fallen victim.
So I guess we aren't going to Key West for spring break.
No.
Welcome back to Mean Green Game Day. I'm your host, Jazzer Williams. I'm joined by Jalen Tucker, Connor Hibbett, and Wyatt Shaw. Y'all, we're going to be talking about UNT versus Memphis. They're traveling out to Memphis, and they will be playing at 6:30, late kick today. And we have a lot to talk about as far as this game. I don't know if we're more so... this is a great face.
No,
That's exactly how I'm feeling right now.
I'm
we're a little bit
mixed
scared.
emotion,
Right,
guys.
of course,
It's a
I
mixed
know.
emotion type game.
We know.
Go ahead.
Of course, we're a little bit nervous for UNT as far as who they're going into. Seth Hedigan and his offense is really good. Like, this is probably the best offense they might have faced so far this season. He's a really solid quarterback.
Yep.
So this is going to be, I don't know if this is a test for UNT's defense. I think this is a more what can y'all do?
Sure.
Let's talk about, has Memphis held back their A game? Guys, what does that mean to y'all?
Well, we have to understand, Memphis has only lost one game, and that was
Right.
against the Navy, okay? And it was a close and nail-biter game. It was 56-44. So, and Navy's a strong-looking team. So,
Exactly.
So when we look at the rest of their schedule, who they've been playing, they haven't had a team where they had to put all their effort into, other than, I guess, the Navy. So they haven't had to put their full foot into a game yet. So I guess with the rest of how their season's playing out, and now they're going to play us at home, they obviously, of course, you have that home advantage right there. But then you have a quarterback like Seth Hedigan. I mean, if we just look at the man's stats, he passes for over 1,000 yards. He's an impressive quarterback. And obviously, we have Morris, who's a great quarterback as well, but you have to understand the defensive side of the ball of Memphis and then the offensive side of the ball, for us, that's going to be that challenge. But you have to understand, our defense against Seth Hedigan's offense is really what's going to be the test for us. Can we cover the ball? And I don't have the strongest faith with UNT because it's back-to-back road games here. You know what I'm saying? And we have this gauntlet of a schedule where we have to play Memphis now, and then Tulane, and then the Army, and it's like, who's making the schedule?
We were set up very well.
Yeah, we were set up very well. Obviously, we get to play Army at home, which is great, and we get to play Tulane at home. But still, these are going to be the games where I hope we can manage to win one of the 3 out of these.
Yeah.
I want to see. Maybe Tulane. Maybe we can beat Tulane.
So at this point with the defense, it's not so much a question of will we. I think it's can we.
Yes.
Because again, we pointed out earlier in the show, we are what we are defensively.
Yeah.
So can we do our job to not give up a ton of points here? So play a bend not break style. We know we're not asking our defense to shut down the Memphis offense. It would be difficult to ask any defense to shut down the Memphis offense, much less a defense that's still trying to find itself in our defense right now. So are they capable of doing their job? That's what I want to know. If they do their job, they play a bend not break style, they don't make many mental mistakes, that's really all you can ask for at this point. Because as we pointed out, it's not so much the will we do this, it's the can we. I have so many questions in regard to what are we defensively? Like, is this who we are, or can we be better? I think we're going to start finding that out as we start playing tougher competition, but just do your job is all I can ask for in a game like this.
Yeah.
I think I'm a bit more sure in what I think we're capable of defensively, and I just don't think that we have much else to show. I think that we are what we have been. I don't think there's anything more for this UNT defense to be. We're just a really bad passing defense. We're just a really, really bad passing defense. We're going to improve running defense, and I would hope we're improving because it was so bad last year. We really targeted it in the portal. We brought in a lot of guys on the defensive line, and it's been improved because of that. Memphis is really, really good. Memphis is the best recruited team. They're the most talented. They were up there with SMU, and SMU is still in the American for the highest rated recruiting classes in the American. Seth Hennigan's really, really good from Denton. It's a shame that he ended up in Memphis.
Over to us.
Mario Anderson Jr., their running back, and Rock Taylor is kind of that 3-headed monster that Memphis has. Rock Taylor might go for 200 receiving yards against us. I mean, our defense against him, especially our pass defense, it's a big, big mismatch. I don't know how many paths there are for us to win. I think the only path is to just win in a shootout. Force turnovers, which we haven't been great at doing because that's a sign of a poor defense is you can't force turnovers. But we have to score a lot of points.
Yeah, we got to rack it up.
Probably 42 plus, probably more than 7 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I just don't see Memphis scoring less than that. That's my thing.
So Memphis has held back this year. Like they played Middle Tennessee a couple weeks ago, and Memphis was coming off of a bye week, and they won 24-7.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you right now, Memphis cruised in that game. They went up 14-0 early, and Middle Tennessee is struggling mightily right now, and Memphis knew that, and they knew that they didn't have to play their A game. So what do I mean by their A game? If you're playing against, like, let's say you've got like LeBron James going up against like a really good 13-year-old, he's gonna win just by overpowering him, right? He doesn't have to bring his A game in one-on-one. He can go up 10-0, and if they're playing like the 21, he can just kind of cruise from there. That's what Memphis has been doing because the opponents that they've played simply cannot even stay with them from a physicality and a talent standpoint. I'm here to tell you they are going to bring their A game against us because it's going to take a better performance from Memphis to beat a higher quality team in what we are compared to like a Middle Tennessee. I'm not saying that we're up here. What I'm saying is Middle Tennessee is down here, and we are at least better than Middle Tennessee.
A good example of that is last year, Texas beats Alabama at Tuscaloosa week 2. The week before that, it was 16-3 at halftime against Rice.
Yes.
So there is, like, it's real. Teams, especially in college, play down to their competition. That's a great example of it. Memphis, they honestly played down to Navy. I don't think they took Navy seriously because it was early in the season. No one knew how good these service academy schools were yet. And so I think they might have played down to their competition. It's Navy. I think this Memphis team might have issues with the run game, like stopping the run. We're not built to run the ball.
And they were also coming off the big Florida State victory.
The big Florida State win.
One
in 5 Florida State.
I think everybody in college football just knows that doesn't count. I think exactly what you were talking about, how it would be UNT's defense versus Memphis's offense. I think it's going to be UNT's offense versus Memphis's offense because our only chance to win this game is if Chandler Morris has the best game of his life and just scores. And outright. Like we can just score. Because UNT defense, has no chance against Seth Hennigan and his offense. There's no chance of them stopping because we already know that our secondary is bad. We already know that there's busted coverage. Like you said, just do your job. We're not good at reading keys. Like, we're not. For some reason, we just, at this point in the season, they just don't know their assignment.
Yeah.
They don't know when to cover the under. They don't know when to cover the over. So it's very difficult to say that they're going to be able to hold any or contain anything as far as Seth Hennigan and Memphis. I think it's going to be Chandler Morris and the offense is just going to have to see how much they can put on the board. And honestly, I think it's going to be another thing that to keep in mind is that possession. I think that the possession times, it might get to a point where UNT's offense might get tired because of how much they're on the field because the defense cannot keep Memphis on the field.
And that's going to be the problem for this type of game is that we're going to have to rely so much on the offensive side of the ball. And that's what's going to hinder us in this game. And we're not trying to sit here and be like, oh, we're anti-UNT right now because, you know, obviously we're 5-1. We're starting better than we were last year. So great, but when we're going against teams like Memphis still and then the Army, we can't just rely on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, people like Chandler Morris and DT Sheffield, those two right there, that duo is amazing for UNT here. Amazing. And I love to see it. But we can't rely on those guys. We have to have some type of defense against that triple threat that Wyatt mentioned. When you have people like Seth Hennigan and his offensive team. We have to figure it out because we cannot just rely on, let's just see how many points we can just score in a game.
Right? Yeah.
Yes,
we
that's
can't, and then
basically
also,
what it's
we
gonna
can't
be.
have turnovers. That's the thing. Obviously, Chandler Morris he's had some issues where he has thrown some interceptions. We can't have that because if they expose us for that, we're going to be screwed this game.
Here's my recommendation for UNT to win this game. Win the coin toss, elect to defer to the second half and try to score up before halftime. But really steal a possession. That's how you can win a game. If we can manage to play in a shootout, try to steal a possession, maybe even attempt an onside kick after scoring. Try to catch Memphis off guard.
Yeah, this team, we're not asking much out of you, Chandler Morris. Just have the game of your life.
Have the game of your life. We need those legs ready, fresh.
Yeah, we're not asking much. Just have the best game you've ever played in your entire life, and we'll be happy.
Yeah, just be a Heisman man right there in that moment, please.
Yep. I agree. And next block, we're going to be talking about college football predictions for some of the games that are going on today. So do not go anywhere.
Live from UNT, it's Wheel of Culture!
Welcome back to Wheel of Culture. Our contestant is so close to solving this puzzle. But first, it's time to give the wheel a spin. Wow, you landed on London, one of the many places where you and your fellow students can go on a chance to experience new culture. But only if you can solve this puzzle.
I'd like to solve the puzzle. Study abroad.
That's correct. You just won yourself a trip to study abroad in London, England, and you can too. Just go to studyabroad.unt.edu to see deadlines and apply for scholarships. Get ready to study abroad.
What's wrong? Are you stuck in your paper?
Pretty much. I haven't written anything in like an hour.
Why don't you check out the Writing Center at UNT?
Well, how do I meet up with them?
All you have to do to make an appointment is visit the Writing Center's website and either call the number or email writingcenter@unt.edu. The appointment is 30 minutes long and the trained tutors will be able to help with brainstorming, correcting grammar, ensuring clarity, and a wide range of services. They also do walk-in appointments.
That sounds awesome. I'm gonna check them out.
So, when's this paper due?
30 minutes.
For more information, visit the UNT Writing Center's website.
Yeah, it's 6 pages.
Welcome back to Mean Green Gameday. I'm your host, Jazzer Williams. I'm joined by Jalen Tucker, Connor Hibbett, and Wyatt Schott. Y'all, we're going to be talking about some of the games that are going on all day today. If you're not watching, what are you doing? You have to be watching. Our first game is going to be Nebraska at number 16, Indiana. I'm going to go with Indiana. I'm going to join the train with Connor. They've been performing very, very well. Their quarterback is just doing them such a good service this season. I think that they're doing great. And I think a lot of people had high hopes for Nebraska. I'm not saying that they've fallen off. but a little bit. I don't think that they're going to be able to pull this out against Indiana because they are on a high right now. I think that Indiana's playing really well, so I think that they're just going to take it over Nebraska.
Well, I'm just going to start off with, it's a home game, so I'm just going to give it to Indiana. I mean, like we said earlier, yeah, I agree with Connery. They've definitely been on a high right now, so it just makes the most sense to go for them for that game.
Do not fade Indiana at any point this year. I highly recommend you don't do that. Kurt Cignetti is one of the most undervalued coaches in the entire country. I'm going with the Hoosiers here to start 7-0. They have already hit their over on their win total, which was 5.5 this year. Heck, there's now an outside chance that this team makes the college football playoff. If it's not A&M from the SEC as that 12 seed, maybe it's Indiana. I'm not exactly like 100% kidding with y'all there, because there's actually an outside chance Indiana goes like 10-2 or 11-1. It's an outside chance. But if it happens, there's going to be serious discussion in regards to Indiana making the college football playoff. Imagine if I had told you that 2 months ago.
I'll be the outsider here. I'll go with Nebraska. I was just really high on this team in the preseason. I really love Matt Rule, but like you said, Kurt Cignetti, one of the best coaches in college football, extremely undervalued, was great at James Madison. However, this is the best team that Indiana has faced all season, and it's not particularly close. Nebraska's talent level is way higher than anyone they've played. Indiana probably hasn't played a top 50 team in college football.
I agree.
By like FPI and SPS Plus. I'm going to go with Nebraska to win. I know it's on the road, but I think that Nebraska is just going to out-talent Indiana.
Next up, we have Wake Forest at UConn. I'm going to go with UConn. I think that they've been performing very well. I haven't seen too much on Wake Forest, so I think I'm just going to favor UConn, and it's a home game, so I'm going to go with UConn.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same thing. I probably haven't really paid much to these two teams, really. I mean, there's so much football going on, it's kind of hard to just watch all of it, but I'm also going to go with the home team here.
I wonder who put this game on the docket for us to pick. Who ranked UConn third here a couple days ago? That's crazy. That's nonsense. UConn to a bowl game, though. You get that camera close on me. UConn, do it. Mush, 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 Huskies. Mush, mush. I'm going with UConn. By the way, guys, UConn has an outside chance to finish with their first winning record since 2010. I don't know who put this game on here. I'm going with the Huskies, though.
Oh my God.
I was playing college football 25 the other day, and I needed a new playbook to use. And Wake Forest has this really cool slow mesh that they run, and so I used their playbook for my dynasty. And so I'm going to go with Wake Forest to win.
Not
mesh against the mush.
Mesh against the mush. I love that.
Hey, that's a great point. Okay, next up we have number 7 Alabama at number 11 Tennessee. Now I know, just to start off, this is going to be an amazing energy game, an amazing environment game. I'm going to go with Bama though. I know I haven't been talking the highest about Bama, but I think that there's a chance that they just would pull away. I do think it's going to be close.
For sure.
Now, yeah, let's not get that confused. I think it'll be between a score or so. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I don't think that either of these teams are just going to perform bad. There is a chance for Bama to do so, but I hope that they don't. But I'm going to go with Bama.
I feel like with an experienced quarterback in Jalen Milrose, you would think that this type of game shouldn't be as tight as it's going to be. But the way they played, against Vandy and close games that they've had this season, obviously we're going to be on edge. But I'm going to give it to Bama because of their notoriety here and for this game. And I don't think Tennessee has been the team that we've expected them to be. I mean, still being ranked 11 is still great, but I think I'm going to have to give it to Bama for this game.
They're playing in Knoxville. It should be an electric environment. This is for you, Mackenzie. I'm going to go with Alabama. It should be a great game. I'm not really sure what to expect out of either of these teams in this game.
That's a great point.
But I'll go with Alabama just because of Tennessee's inconsistency on offense so far this season.
Yeah.
This is going to sound weird, but Bama's defense is more equipped to beat the Georgias and Tennessees of the world than the Vanderbilts and the South Carolinas of the world. And that veer option with a highly mobile quarterback is something that Keenan Womack's defense has always struggled with. And they struggled against Vandy and they lost. They struggled against South Carolina. They very easily could have lost. However, when you play teams with a more pro-style offense and a more air-friendly offense in Tennessee and Georgia, they see a lot more success. It's going to be a great environment. Everyone remembers what happened in 2022 when Tennessee won, stormed the field, took the goalpost into the river.
Yes.
It is going to be an electric environment. I wish if I could be at any game this year, or besides Texas and Georgia, I would want to be at this game. Third Saturday in October is a wonderful rivalry, great for the sport. I got Bama in this one because I think the defense is going to perform really well.
If I had to be at a game this weekend, it'd be UConn Wake Forest.
Next up, we have number 24, Michigan at 22, Illinois. I think this is one of those not really, looked at very well by the entirety of national college football. I think everybody, we were very high on Memphis, and yay, they won, and then they just completely fell off, and everyone's like, oh, okay, bye Memphis. So I'm going to go with, Michigan, you're right. Sorry, I've been saying Memphis. But, everybody was high on Michigan, and then they kind of just disappeared. And it's been a little sad, but expected, of course. I'm going to go with Illinois. I think that they've been solid, and more so just because Michigan hasn't. They haven't been good. So I'm just going to go with the other team that they're playing.
I think naturally when it comes to the idea of sports, you're going to lose your strong players. That has to do with any sports in general.
Of course.
College and national league, you're going to lose players. So, of course, when you have Michigan who lost such a strong quarterback, within him going into the draft and everything, that just makes sense. So, obviously, they have fell off extremely down to when they were number one and, they won the National College Football, which I did predict.
Yeah,
but now them being, now all the way down to 24, I'm still going to have them pick to win this game. I think it's going to be one of those close to nail-biter games. So give me Michigan for this. Go Blue.
This is a complete toss-up in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the home team here in Illinois. I think Illinois' coaching staff is better than the current Michigan coaching staff. That's my reasoning for picking Illinois here, but I'm not really sure who's better here.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to go with Michigan. I changed my mind on it this morning. I heard a stat that Illinois was 77th in rush defense, and Michigan wants to run the ball. The path here for Illinois is to jump on top of Michigan early, get a quick lead, and I don't know if their offense is equipped to do that. So give me Michigan in a low-scoring game.
Next up, we have number 5, Georgia at 1, Texas. Of course, I'm going to go with Texas.
Yeah, it just makes sense with this game. I think Texas makes sense. The way they've been playing and how they're ranked right now. So, yeah, give me Texas for this one.
So here's my reasoning for picking Georgia in this game. If Georgia ends up losing, who's going to play Texas for the SEC championship? I'm not sure how that would work, given how many teams in the SEC have like 1 or 2 losses in the loss column right now. I have no idea who's going to end up playing. Even if Texas loses this game, I still think Texas ends up playing for the SEC championship. So because of the madness in my head right now, I've got to go with Georgia.
I'm going to go with Texas, obviously.
Yeah.
You can tell Jazzer's excited.
She can't wait.
Texas is the most complete team in the country. They've shown me that the entire year. Georgia has shown me that they're very flawed. Their pass defense has not been great. Bama exposed them, and Jalen Milroe is not a great passing quarterback. That's just the reality of it. And Bama's wide receivers might not even be that elite outside of Ryan Williams. I think Texas' skill position talent's really good. I think their defense is going to play really good. I have some questions, though, about their run defense. It didn't look great against Mississippi State. It looked really good against Michigan, but when they have no passing offense to counter that, you can kind of scheme some things. I just believe in this offense. I believe in this defense. I believe in this whole team. I think Texas wins. I think they could win by double digits.
Okay, next up. Sorry, y'all. I just hate seeing Texas win. It just makes me cry. I just hate it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Next up, we have UNT at Memphis. I'm going to go with Memphis. I think we've talked about how much they are just a better team. They're just a better team. I don't think that UNT has anything to really combat them except their offense.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to have to go verse for this one for me because I'm definitely torn because I love Memphis and I love UNT, of course. But we just have to do it based off how it just looks on paper. Give me Memphis.
Memphis is the better team here. There's really no question about that, but I'm going to go with UNT.
Yep.
Every single game this year, you will see me pick UNT.
You will not see me pick UNT every single week this year. I'm going to go with Memphis. I think they're just the better team from top to bottom. So give me Memphis.
Thank you guys so much for watching today's show, y'all. Man, I'm just so broke up about Texas. Oh my gosh, I just hate seeing them win. Y'all, thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to be talking about so much more next week and all of these big games. We'll be talking about all of the things that happen, and we'll be talking about more about UNT next week. Make sure that you follow us on all of our socials and everything that you can find us on. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today.